Watch this.
All right, let's see it.
What was really crazy, where was Jesus born? In Hebrew, Bethlehem, the house of bread. House of bread. But here's the deeper thing. Hebrew is alphanumeric. That means every letter has a numerical value.
So some important context. Hebrew is alphanumeric now, and it has been since around 200 BCE. But prior to that, we have no evidence of it being used alphanumerically. Numbers were spelled out, or they used characters that were borrowed from hieratic numerals. So it's only since about 200 BCE that the Hebrew alphabet has been used alphanumerically, and the first evidence we have of Gematria comes from a little after 100 BCE. So very, very little of the Hebrew Bible has anything whatsoever to do with Gematria, and it was still a pretty newish convention around the time that the New Testament was written, so it was not very widely used.
Bethlehem, house of bread, has a numerical value of 490. Nativity in Hebrew equals 490.
So moledet can mean nativity in modern Hebrew, and that would have an alphanumeric value of 480. To get to 490, we'd need to add a yod, which has a value of 10 to the end, which would function as a first common singular pronominal suffix, meaning my. So my nativity in modern Hebrew would have a value of 490. But moledets and moladti are used in the Hebrew Bible not to mean nativity or my nativity, though they are used as nouns that mean kindred or my kindred. They are coming from a verbal root, yalad, which means to give birth, and this is a passive noun form with the performative mem, so it means something like born ones, but it's used to refer to other members of the same family, the same kin, in other words, kindred.
To be perfect or complete, tamim in Hebrew equals 490.
So to be a little nitpicky here, to be perfect or complete, the verbal root is tamam, which would have a value of 480. Tamim with the yod, which adds another 10 to bring it to 490, would be the adjectival form, and it would only work in the masculine singular adjectival form. So if it were feminine, if it were in reference to a woman, that would be tamimah, which would add another 5 to the alphanumeric value to bring it to 495. If it were plural in either masculine or feminine, it would add even more.
Why is that significant? Because Jesus, born in Bethlehem 490, was the perfect tamim, sacrifice 490. Peter comes to Jesus and says, how many times do I have to forgive? 7 times. And Jesus says, no, what does he say?
70 times 7.
490. Why did he pick that number?
I'm done.
So Gematria and chiasmus both have very similar problems in that they are ways to read significance into a text, but there's not really a good way to know if that was intended by the authors or editors. And overwhelmingly, it's probably not. And here's a good illustration of that. This is a list of other words from the Hebrew Bible that have an alphanumeric value of 490. Right in the dead center, we have shekets, which means abomination. And this is a word that is used to refer to the gods of other nations. Right above that, you have metim, which can be a masculine plural participial form of the verb to die, and so it can refer to dead men, and it's also used to refer to idols, the gods of other nations. Down toward the bottom, in that middle column, we have petit, which means a naive person, or it could be a feminine singular imperative form of the verb to entice. So it can be a command to a woman to entice someone. At the very top of the middle column, you got the name Japheth, but it could also be a feminine singular construct form of the word pretty. And you've got a bunch of different words that mean things like transgression or enemy or things like that. There are a lot of different words that have an alphanumeric value of 490 in Hebrew. Now keep in mind the New Testament was written entirely in Greek, and there's not a good case to make that any given statement that is put into the mouth of Jesus in Greek in the New Testament is a verbatim account of what Jesus actually said, not only because he would have been speaking in Aramaic, and so it represents a translation, but also because we just don't have enough data to be able to trace any of those words back to a historical Jesus. So most scholars agree that what we have in the text of the New Testament is the work of the author who's writing these texts. And this is why Jesus's discourses in the different Gospels, even where they're supposed to be the exact same discourse, are very different. And so trying to reduce that to individual words and then finding significance using Gematria to read into those texts, meaning that is just too freighted with theological significance to be coincidence, is something that is very common and not very methodologically sound, and so should not be taken very seriously. And the fit for this video is the man without fear.